I'm warning you. I'm warning you. Watch out about going partners in property. Maybe not. Stay tuned.
I'm the ringleader, so listen up.
We're in New York. New York, New
Look at
York, baby.
look at that. That's an amazing. Can you step back a little bit and show us your boardroom?
Skyline views. I'm in my boardroom this morning because we're talking about getting into bed with other people when it comes to property, when it comes to business. It's a big decision. You don't want to get it wrong because it could cripple you, Mark.
Yeah, I'm always having a chat with people and they're saying, look, I'm thinking about buying with my brother, with my best friend, blah, blah, blah. And I'm always saying, be careful.
Yeah. Well, you don't choose. You be careful with your partners, and that should be you should be just as careful with any investment partner as well. So we're on air to talk. Is it a bad idea, going halfies on a property? Should you just do it a lone journey? But then also, there's huge upsides to doing it with a partner as well. So where do you want to start?
I do like Lone Wolf first because the exit strategy is clear for you and also for the other party. And I've always said when you have a partnership in property, you may think it's you and and the other person, but it's also your lover or potential lover wife and the other partner's lover or potential lover wife. So suddenly your partnership of two turns to partnership of four by default when everyone gets married and gets older. It's a scary cocktail.
A cocktail it is.
Yep.
But yeah, the lone wolf, for your number one, Mark, the best part about it is it's all yours. There's no sharing. It's just like when you get a good Christmas present. It's all yours to keep. Do what you want with it. I think that's actually maybe the best way to do it.
I guarantee it is. And also with lending, you've also got to bear in mind that sometimes you can actually take on the other person's debt as well in the bank's eyes. So often people don't realise that if you're borrowing 500 grand between you, you would naturally think I'm borrowing 250 and the other half's borrowing 250, but the bank consolidates the debt that way. So you're actually generally taking on the full exposure of that debt anyway. So it's like, well, if I'm going to do that, I might as well just buy it myself. Anyway, I don't want to be poo-pooing what we're going to talk about next, but I think people get an idea. Let's talk about other going partnerships.
Partnerships are beautiful, in life, and it should be in property as well. I think the idea of a partnership, having two incomes against one, does allow you to get more exposure into the market. You can obviously buy, 2 times what you could before. Yeah, what do you think? I think with the right partner, it's powerful because it gives you so much more opportunity.
I'm up for one life partner, and that's probably it. And I'm happy to do plenty of sharing that way. But any more than that, I think you can probably do it on your own back. But Billy, what are the options with property? So if you're not going to buy it in your own name, what are your options out there?
Well, another one that I was reading up a little bit on is a real estate investment trust. Now, a trust, like any other trust, it deals with property, but it allows you to, what it does is it takes a number of investors as such, uses that capital to invest in property. And like any other trust, when it generates income, feeds back to the people that have put up the cash at the start. So what's nice about this version is it allows people to get into property, get some exposure in the market without actually having to finance it themselves, manage it themselves, and go through all the headache. They sort of look after that.
It's not a lumpy entry as well, I think, where you're not having to come up with your big money in stamp duty. You're not having to come up with submitting to banks and stuff like that. So it's quite a silky entry and quite a silky exit as well. Now, these parties are related or unrelated?
Unrelated, generally, from what I read. I'm sure there's different types. And of course, you'd want to do your research before you put your cash up with any unrelated people you don't know. But the concept of it, I think, is the bigger point that we want to talk about this morning. The concept of getting into property, getting into bed with people that you don't know. This is another option. But what's good about this option is it is managed. It's managed by professionals. It's not just some bloke who's struggling to get into the market himself and wants to get a few buddies together. These guys are professionals, and it offers some perks for people that might be not wanting to do it lone journey.
So, guys, it's known as a REIT. It's affectionately known as a REIT, a real estate investment trust. There are public. You can put $1,000 in, or you can put $100,000 in general in these real estate investment trusts. The thing I like about these real estate investment trusts, I've never invested in one, by the way. But the thing I like it is particularly they're often performing better than having your money in the bank, which people are saving for a deposit to buy their home. Now, some of the guys that run these real estate investment trusts, they are the best in the bloody business. What's Luke got to say? People who are consistent in tough times, they will still answer the phone. It's true. It's true. Yeah. So the thing with the real estate investment trust is these are brilliant minds you're actually sharing the investment with. So yes, I guess if you're a brilliant mind, why do you want to run a real estate investment trust? Well, that's often just the type of guys they are. They dream big, they think big. When they get a couple of hundred, a couple of thousand investors, then they can do whatever they want across Australia. They make these investments. They develop these investments. They crystallise and sell these investments, and they return the money back to investors. So, I think, look, I'm not a financial advisor, but I just want to it is something that's out there that's available to people.
Yeah, and that's the important part, is just knowing that they're out there, because you might be thinking it's never going to happen. This could be another way. Could be a nice way to tie up maybe some retirement money and buy part of a property. Yep.
I've got a client doing that at the moment. He's a fabulously successful investor in Northern Beaches property. He sold in the order of $15 or $20 million last year of property. And I'm like, what are you doing with the money? And he's like, when I'm 78, I'm sick of having to worry about tenants moving out, tenants moving in. When I'm gone, I don't want my kids to have these worries that I've got. So I'm just investing in a REIT, and basically, he's got a bankable income, not a bad income, coming in for the rest of his life. And when he's gone for his kids don't have to do shit. It's all there. It just keep coming in. Interesting.
Very interesting. Another spin off that is it still allows you to get into property without, the hassle of it. But you're not then deciding, do I go and take that cash into shares or something? You believe, this guy has obviously believed in property for the entirety of his investment career, and he's not having to throw that all away and then take an even better gamble into something he doesn't know. Yeah.
It's not a bad option. What about getting partners with your best mate or your sister or family friend or next door neighbour or something?
It's doable from my understanding, you got to make sure it's all, in black and white. I think on paper, don't be foolish enough to ever let yourself think just because he's my brother or best mate, let's not do it properly. I think that is just asking for trouble. You're getting into a huge commitment here, sharing debt, sharing the liability. You'd be so silly to skip the solicitor fees, if that's even possible, trying to save $2,000 and thinking, let's do it all under one name, and then you just send me half the profit, or we split half the cost down the middle. I think that's got to be a tip you'd advise, Mark.
Yeah, I reckon it's a lot of stuff changes very quickly in your life. Whether you're getting married, whether you're changing careers, whether you're deciding to travel, and that sort of stuff. So I would just be really, really careful about who you're jumping into bed with if you're going partners. I generally, people come to me and say, look, Mark, what do you know? What don't you know? And I generally say, look, just do it yourself. Wait, if you have to wait an extra year or two to save that extra little bit of deposit to do it yourself, do that, because we are often selling for people that the partnership just didn't work out, and it never sort of ends well either. So I think if you can keep your money separate, keep your money quarantined, and do it yourself, definitely. One of the biggest reasons for that is first home buyer incentives. You do lose first home buyer incentives often when you go into partnership with family or friends. But when you do it solo, you do get the full benefit of first home buyer benefits. So just be careful of that.
Yeah, true. Didn't think about some of those grants, and for like me, for example, once you've taken up on those grants, they obviously don't apply later on, whether that's you're going into a partnership or whatever. So yeah.
So you tell people that, and they go, "What? I can't get the grant if I buy in this partnership." And it's like, no, once you're not a first home buyer after that, they're like, "Ooh, I didn't know that."
We invite them to the big league, Mark.
What do you mean?
Like, we invite them to the big league. They get scared, but we're into the big league then. Serious stuff.
Yeah, you know what it is, but it's at the moment, you're probably as serious as it gets. And if you look at your situation, it was a big commitment, but when you sort of look back on it, 6 months later, it's like, it was a smaller hurdle than I actually thought. But when you're looking at it front on, it appears a much bigger hurdle than it is going solo.
Yeah, it's funny. The biggest thing I've taken away from buying a property myself is when you talk a lot about trying to play the long game rather than the short game. I just think, in my opinion, it's so much easier to play the long game in the way that you've got your mortgage coming in, you just factor out those expenses, and then you almost move on. You forget about it, and it's like paying your phone bill. I'll just start saving again after I've paid the mortgage, or I'll start going out again and spending money after the mortgage has been paid. It's just like second nature.
It's really a prioritization rather than a ball and chain on your leg. Do you know what I mean? It sort of just takes priority over other stuff, which is probably good to have that priority. But I think we covered most of the stuff here today on getting into bed with others. Real estate investments trust is what started this topic today, Billy. So we've spoken about people investing into that, getting into the property related stocks. That we've spoken to buying with partners, buying with family. Is there any other thing that we've missed out on getting into bed with others?
Yes, there is, and it's a question for you, Mark. Was it, in your experience, was it scarier buying your first property on your own, or first property? I know you said you haven't done it with a family member, but maybe in a young relationship, not where you're already doubting it, but like you're like, well, we now share this. If you can remember that long ago.
I can remember that long ago, and I think at that time there's so many other emotions that are flying around. Instead of settling them all and moving them through your head at the same time. So I was never just worried about the money side of owning properties and meeting a girl. It was sort of, you're worried about the life partner thing, and you're worrying about the kids thing, and you're worrying about the money thing, and you're worrying about the property thing. It was just all of that. It sort of came as one whole package. So I never chucked it down to oh shit. But often you hear people coming into a relationship. We hear retired people talk about coming into a relationship with with equal standing, so they don't feel threatened because one's got just as much as the other. But yeah, to answer your question, it was definitely there, but it was one of many decisions being made at the same time. So it's sort of it just got all packaged up in that.
Well, I suppose whether it's your best mate, your neighbour, or a partner, understanding and just making sure you're aware where you sit financially, legally, all that would get rid of any concern. Because at the end of the day, you prepare yourself for that, and that's it. Done deal.
Big time. And pay the pros, for good legal advice and accounting advice, or people that you love and respect that have done it before. Definitely, if you're looking at getting into bed with people, definitely speak to other people that don't have those interests at heart, like they're not involved. You know what I mean? And get some advice from those guys.
That's a wrap. Thanks, Mark. See you back in DY soon.
See you, bud.